What a great pleasure it is to welcome to What's Next Anton Ossip, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Discovery Insure, the company that insures my vehicle, just as a FYI and as a disclosure. So I'm not going to ask him any favorable questions, but I'm a very happy customer of Discovery Insure. But Anton, welcome to the show. Firstly, it's been a very interesting 2 years as we come out of this pandemic. I know Discovery on the health side has been, going through all sorts of things and involved in all sorts of projects. And I imagine that with Insure, you've also faced your own challenges at Insure.
Aki, firstly, great to see you. Thanks for having me on your show. It's been a very interesting and quite tricky 2 years, I think, in many respects. I think people just adjusting in the early days of the pandemic to a new way of how people manage their assets, whether they're driving their car or not driving their car, and, all the sort of, motor insurance related questions that came from that. To now we kind of, moving into a slightly new normal, different to what we've had in the past. And I think managing any business in that environment has its challenges. I think we've been blessed for the business to be really, really strong, I think, during that time in terms of being able to grow our business, bring on a lot more customers, and bring in a lot more innovation, I think, into the product. So, our colleagues have been busy with vaccinating people. We've actually been busy with fixing potholes on the streets of Johannesburg.
Oh, wow.
You may have seen.
I have.
We started this initiative called Pothole Patrol. So, we've all been involved in different things, but I think all of them have a role to play in
Yeah.
society.
Yeah, listen, the potholes have been quite horrendous. Just out of interest, I don't know if you have that number off the top of your head. Road damage and potholes and that sort of thing. Have you seen a sharp increase in the last, say, 2.5, 3 years with damage insurance claims regarding, as a result of a pothole?
Absolutely. I mean, so we saw to climb up really as sort of, the state of the roads, came under pressure. A lot of it because of COVID. There were months and months where there was no roadworks that could take place because of the COVID lockdown provisions. And then, add to that the rain that we've had. We've had a
Yes.
really heavy sort of period of rain over the last sort of 6 to 9 months or so. So that certainly hasn't helped. We wanted to get involved and work with the city of Johannesburg to try and make a difference to the roads, because as an insurance company, we obviously see we're on the other side of a pothole in terms of the damage that it causes, both to property and to life. We have so many tragic situations of people that are in accidents, and some of them pretty bad because of potholes. So we started this initiative. We partnered with the city, we partnered with Dial Direct, and I think we've made a significant difference in terms of fixing over 80,000 potholes we fixed since we started this in May. We're doing many thousands every single month. And I think the population, has appreciated. The population of Johannesburg has appreciated, the impact. That we're not doing all of it. Obviously, the city has
Yes.
obviously a big team of people, and they're fixing lots of potholes all the time. We're really supplementing that and trying to add to that. So we have seen a great effect. We've seen our pothole claims reduce in Johannesburg, while it's gone up in the rest of the country. So that's a
That's
key
interesting.
indication that it is working.
I'm sure a lot of you actuaries are a bit relieved in Johannesburg, but what an amazing success story it's been. I mean, I remember being in an office just before the launch of Discovery Insure. I think you were there at your old buildings on West Street, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's unbelievable to think that Discovery Insure has turned 10 last year, so you'll be 11 this year. I mean, the last 10 years have been really interesting. What learnings have you guys had over the last 10 years? And what does it look like for the next 10 years as a short-term insurer from your perspective? And you've adopted so many new technologies, and at the time I was blown away by what you guys are doing. I'm excited to hear about the next 10 years, but what's it been like up to now, and what does the next 10 years look like?
So, Aki, when we started our business, the whole kind of core of the business is, could we get people to drive better, and through that reduce the number of motor accidents, through our client base and more broadly across society. So it was the vitality shared value concept, shared value insurance concept that we wanted to apply to the world of motor insurance. And I think, through that kind of start, 10 and a half years ago, has led us down this remarkable journey of finding so many other areas that we could influence. So, for example, just keeping people safe. So not only looking after their actual physical assets, their car, their home, all the other possessions that they have, which we insure, but also looking after them as individuals. So the safety features of impact alert, where we're able to assist people at the, as soon as they have an accident. And we hear these stories every single day where someone's in a serious accident, Discovery Insure reaches out to them almost instantaneously because we have the data that our device tells us there's been a heavy G-force taking place on the vehicle. So, the kind of concept around Formula One is what we kind of thought about in the early days of Discovery Insure, where, in the pits, you know exactly what's going on with your vehicles, you know exactly the G-forces that are taking place. We've applied that in scale, where we have over 300,000 vehicles, and we know, how those vehicles effectively are being driven. And if someone's in an accident, it could be a significant accident, they could be unconscious, we're able to reach out to them and send an ambulance out immediately. And the stories I hear, I remember someone coming to my office a few weeks ago. They happened to be in the building. It was someone, doesn't work for Discovery, and they were coming to visit someone in the building. They had to come and see me to tell me about a serious accident that they had over December, where their car lost control, with their family on the way back from holiday, and they went, like a couple hundred meters off the road. They were taken by losing control of their car, came to an abrupt stop. And as soon as they got out the car, there was a phone call. Hi, it's Discovery Insure. We know you've been in an accident. We're sending out an ambulance. And they said, no, we're okay. You don't have to send an ambulance. And I said, no, we know it's a serious accident. You obviously are confused. We're sending out an ambulance. And the person was just so grateful that someone was there to look after them. And, that we do that every single day in high numbers. And so that kind of using technology to keep people safe was something that we really have found incredibly effective over time, as well as preventing other types of insurance events. We were the first to pioneer weather alerts, where we worked out a couple years ago, about probably 8-9 years ago, that we can actually tell with high level of probability if there's going to be a hailstorm. So if we have this information and we have a bit of notice, let's tell our customers in real time based on where they actually are, because again, we have telematics data that tells us that you may live in Randburg, but you're driving in some other part of the city. We'll tell you based on where your vehicle is if you're likely to get involved in a hailstorm, and then you can decide if you can take precautionary action against that. Obviously, if you can't, you can't.
Do you know how many times that has saved me, Anton? That SMS to say that there's a high likelihood of hail in your area, and I just avoid the area, and then bam, you read about it in the newspaper afterwards, or you read about it online. But that SMS alert has helped me so many times.
Great. So it's kind of led us down this interesting journey of using technology to keep people safer and to keep their assets safer. And we've loved it, and we're finding more and more things kind of all the time. I think the other important thing for us is, the perception of insurance is a grudge spend. We've kind of, by having this regular interaction with our customers, rewarding them all the time for being a good driver. On a weekly basis, we reward them with Discovery Miles. The most valuable currency you can get now is Discovery Miles. If you use it, use it to effectively buy just about anything that you can buy on the Discovery store in terms of using your miles, you can earn a significant amount of Discovery Miles for driving well. To the monthly rewards, where you get a discount on fuel, and I think we all know how valuable a discount of fuel is right now, where the fuel price is and where it's potentially going. To all the safety features I've spoken about before. So it turns insurance from just something where you pay every single month reluctantly, and you hope you never use it by never having to have a claim, to a whole lot of regular interaction on a positive nature. And I think that's been interesting for us, this kind of shift in kind of thinking, from traditional insurance to already a whole new category. We believe this is almost a whole new category in itself of sort of, shared value insurance and how it operates.
That's fascinating. And I found myself, for example, the fact that you've gamified it is one thing, but I get irritated if I get bad marks on my driving. And here's a 54-year-old judging himself, but it really forces you to drive better, right? And the question I have for you, I don't know if there's analysis or stats on this, but are Discovery drivers safer drivers than drivers who are covered by other insurance companies?
So we've definitely got stats that shows that our clients, when they join us, they'll be better drivers. Yeah. So we see it in our numbers. I mean, it's we see the numbers when clients join us, they improve their driving behavior within the first 30 days by 15%. So there's a 15% improvement in their driver score within the first 30 days. Then we find that a high percentage of them retain that high level of driving. They don't go back to their old ways because we constantly are reminding them about what good driving is all about. So that kind of comes together to provide favorable loss ratios or claim ratios. So if you compare our motor claim ratios, to general motor claim ratios in the market, they are favorable. The differences are always hard to compare from one company to another, but in terms of better drivers, we are pretty confident that Discovery drivers are the safest drivers on the road. Another important stat is that our gold and diamond drivers, we haven't had one fatality in 11 years being a
Wow.
gold or diamond driver. So it kind of says if you drive like that, there's no reason why you're going to be subject to a fatal motor vehicle accident. There's no reason for that, because people generally think that accidents are caused by someone else. The reality is that most of the accidents are caused by yourself. If you are a responsible driver, you'll be able to avoid an accident. You
Yes.
won't cause an accident in the first place, and ultimately you'll keep yourself safe. So definitely we believe that Discovery Insure drivers are the safest drivers, are the best drivers, and hopefully makes a difference to those around them, but other people start driving better.
Amazing stuff, Anton. I mean, you guys have been at the forefront of innovation. I alluded to that time where I came into your offices and I heard about Discovery Insure for the first time. And at the time, what you were introducing was groundbreaking in South Africa. You spend a lot of money and you invest a lot of money into your research and development for Discovery Insure specifically. Now, this obviously means annual product updates. You keep enhancing the system, you keep changing your system, and obviously your competitors are now starting to copy what you guys have been doing. So you guys have to keep adding that tech-enabled safety offering for your personal lines and your business clients. Tell us about that research and development and how Discovery Insure stays ahead.
So it's a big focus of ours. It's really in the DNA of the company to constantly innovate and find better ways of doing things, because there's always a better way of doing something, and the better way of providing solutions for our customers, our advisors, and really sort of the whole ecosystem that we operate within. So on an annual basis, we have what we call the Discovery Day launch, where we launch new products. If I just think back to 2021, where we launched in March last year, where we did a full launch across our individual business and our commercial business, and launched a number of new features. I'll talk to a couple of them. One is a motion alert, where we introduced a feature that if your car drives, and you're not in the car, so someone else takes your car, it's either being stolen or someone's taking your car without your permission, the device that we install in your car recognizes that effectively you're not driving your vehicle. We reach out to you by phone to say, Aki, we see your car's driving, you're not in the car, we want to just check you're okay. And very often it may be, no, no one should be driving my car. My car's obviously been stolen. And it gives us an very, very early indication that we need to invoke a recovery process. And we run a full recovery process ourselves. We run a 24-hour call center within Discovery Insure. We don't outsource it to anyone else. And we go and we'll try, obviously, recover the vehicle. And if we can't get hold of you, then you may be under duress. There may be issues. And we can obviously do something about that. That's Motion Alert. We also, in our commercial business, launched a number of new products. So we've taken what we've done for the personal lines or the individual market, and we've made it available for the fleet market. But last year we extended it to heavy commercial vehicles. So big trucks on the road are obviously an important stakeholder in the whole system of road usage, and we want to make sure that they're driving as safely as possible. So we introduced rewards for truck drivers for the company itself in terms of managing their fleet well. And we actually launched a piece of technology that goes live, funny enough, tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow's the live date. We've been piloting it over the last few weeks or so. It's an in-cabin camera called DriveView, where we've developed it together with a company a partner of ours in Boston that we involved in, and we're a shareholder in, where effectively it's a camera inside the cabin, so it's looking forwards at the driver and whoever else is in the cabin, and it's looking outwards out the window. It's recording all the time, but effectively storing information where required. So we're not storing every single second of driving information. We're storing the important information. It's got a fleet portal that allows the fleet company, to go in and be able to download some of that information to see, how the driver's driving. And if there's an accident, to be able to actually pull that information so you can actually see what was happening when there was an accident, both in the cabin and outside the vehicle. And it also, at the same time, measures driving behavior. So we can see if the truck is driving too fast, if it's driving too aggressively, where it's driving, when it's driving. So all that information is all in the same, piece of technology that fits very neatly on the windshield. So, we've made it available now to the heavy vehicle, trucking vehicle market. And over time, we may make it available to other bases of users. And I think the technology that it allows us to go down and the things we can do, I think are going to be quite interesting. I think just watch that space in terms of ideas we have.
Gee, that's absolutely fascinating. Well, look, it's incredible to see how Discovery Insure has evolved, right? I mean, from just vehicles to heavy-duty vehicles, as you've just mentioned, and household insurance. My house is covered by Discovery Insure. And I guess that you're going into businesses as well, and you're offering all sorts of things. I want to ask you on cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has become such a big thing. It's something that's very close to my heart, and you just look at the global threat. In fact, this is not, this is coming from the World Economic Forum, and it's coming from various people who've done the research, and they say that cyber risks are on top of the most dangerous things that can destabilize everything around us. And I guess that when you look at how much ransomware is happening out there, how many organizations are being hit every single day with data theft, etc., etc., the cyber criminals are employing the most interesting and innovative tricks to try and break into systems. Tell us about your outlook on cybersecurity as Discovery Insure.
Sure. So, Aki, when we started our commercial business now about 3 years ago, we wanted to focus on the key risks of today. So cover the risks of yesterday that are important as well, the physical risks, your motor fleet, your factory, your warehouse. Those are obviously very, very important, but those aren't the only risks that a company should be worrying about today. There's risks that are potentially going to become more relevant, over time, and may even be a bigger thing to worry about than the risks that we have previously worried about. So cyber insurance is one of them. I'll mention another two, and then I'll go back to cyber insurance. Reputational risk is important as well. So, the reputation, many businesses, if their business burns down, it's one thing, but if their reputation and their brand gets tarnished on social media, that's much more significant. So kind of reputation and social media many times go hand in hand, but those are very, very important risks that companies need to be insuring against and managing against, and ensuring that if something goes wrong, you have the right team of people that can be called in, sometimes at quite expensive rates, but paid for effectively through an insurance policy to help manage those issues. Going back to cyber insurance, so we've offered cyber insurance from day one, and we've made it available much easier for the smaller company. So our focus of our commercial insurance business isn't for big corporates. It's for smaller businesses and medium-sized businesses. So, businesses from anything employing one person to employing a couple hundred people, that would be the typical client that we would be interested in. And many of them think that cyber insurance or cyber risk doesn't apply to them. They think the big banks should be worrying about cyber insurance and the big data bureaus, and those are the people that should be worrying about cyber insurance. And of course they should, and cyber risk. But so should a small business. I mean, we've heard of situations of medical practices, having their database compromised by cyber criminals, and they have to pay a ransom to get access to their own data. Legal practices, we've heard about the same thing. An insurance broker, I heard of an insurance broker that their client base was compromised. They had to pay, I can't remember, X number of Bitcoins to get access to their own customer base. Again, these things are happening every single day. People think it's not happening to them. It's not going to happen to them. As long as you've got a database with sensitive client information and it's exposed to the internet, you're effectively at risk. So we offered an insurance policy where you can take out cover depending on how much cover you require through your insurance broker. It's a conversation that they would assist you in determining how much cover to get. It covers first-party and third-party risks. So first parties being your own data, access to your own business, your own systems. Third party risk is being sued by a third party because you've now exposed their data to the outside world. So it covers both first and third party. And what it also does is it takes it further from just being an insurance policy that pays out an amount of money. We partnered with an expert in this field called AVES. They specialize effectively in cyber risk, and they provide preventative packages. So you can get a preventative package relatively cost effectively, where you can ensure that every one of your computers effectively is constantly being screened to make sure that it's not being compromised, and the right firewalls and the right processes to ensure that even if you're a small company, you don't have a big IT department, it doesn't mean that you don't have access to the best resources. And then should something happen and someone actually is able to get into your systems, then that's where they really sort of invoke their resources to mitigate it, to stop it happening further, to understand the extent of it, and really sort of help manage the situation at that point in time. So I think it's a very, very important partner to have for any small, medium-sized business, and not just expect it to be an issue for companies that are written about in the newspapers. There's a lot of small companies that aren't written about in the newspapers.
And I guess that's, for organizations today, big or small, to not have any kind of cybersecurity insurance is looking for trouble, right? It's like driving a car without insurance. In today's world, you have to take a look at that very, very seriously. Are you finding a big uptake on companies who are now saying we want to be covered for cyber?
I think that we've seen the number of inquiries go up, so certainly a lot more people are interested in it. I think the take-up is still relatively small compared to the number of people that have small commercial insurance, and I think it's a knowledge kind of gathering game. I think advisors, clients are gathering knowledge, trying to understand more and more about it, and I think that the uptick definitely will, or the numbers that take it up will definitely increase over time. We're trying to provide a very simple to understand product so that it's not a complicated process, it's not very expensive. So I think relative to the turnover of most businesses, is actually quite a small spend, but it's, I think, an important spend to have in the business. And as you say, you wouldn't run a business and you'd forget to insure your warehouse. So why would you run a business and not be concerned about your data?
Interesting stuff. Anton, you're very passionate about entrepreneurship, and Discovery itself carries itself with the passion and vigor of a startup. And that's something that you guys have not lost, and that's what I love about Discovery, not resting on its laurels or falling prey to any incumbency. Discovery Business Insurance, we were just talking about it earlier, has a goal of impacting 10,000 small and medium-sized enterprises. Tell us about what those practical measures are in place to support these small and medium-sized enterprises through training. I understand you've got a plumber program, you've got business incubation, you've got all sorts of partnerships going on with your insurance clients. I find that really fascinating, because if you look at the economy, it's these businesses that are driving the economy right now.
Absolutely. I mean, in any economy, it's driven by SMEs ultimately. You always have large companies, and you'll have a sort of finite number of large companies, but then you'll have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of small companies that power economies. And the best economies of the world are the ones that embrace the SME space and help them to succeed, help them to survive, and hopefully become the corporates of tomorrow. So, Discovery is a case in point. 30 years ago, we were an SME. We were a small business, started by two individuals who had a dream, and it was built into a big organization. And I think as a business, still feel in many ways like we are a startup. We operate in many ways we're operating new businesses all the time. We have founders in all parts of our business that are with the business for many, many years, and watch it grow into big businesses. And we want to apply the same sort of entrepreneurial thinking to the way we work with our customers. So we do a number of things. Within our commercial business, we have a partnership with Endeavour. That's effectively it's a kind of an incubator to help small businesses become big businesses. It's a global organization. Many South African companies have become sort of Endeavour partners, and we use their kind of thinking and try to find a way to scale what they do in small numbers to do it in big numbers across our customer base by giving a sort of curated number of partners that can help our customers in terms of scaling and growing their businesses. You mentioned an initiative with plumbers. That's something we started last year in partnership with Raise Corp, who have a lot of experience in terms of helping small, little businesses become more formal. So taking businesses on the informal sector and into the formal sector, and we've done that in the plumbing community because we believe that there was an opportunity to help small plumbers, people that were sort of running one-man businesses, to become more formalized, to be able to operate, working with insurance companies like ourselves. So we help them with training and business training, and just making sure they're professional in the way they effectively addressing the problems that insurance companies have. And it's early days, but I think I'm very, very passionate about what they can achieve as we scale that over time. So, many different things. Aki could talk about this topic all day long, but if we're able to do, I think, a little bit here to help more and more companies not fail in the early years, because that's typically what happens. SMEs have a great idea, they start the business, and then something goes wrong, and that's the end of the business after a year or two, because they never thought about the risks.
Yeah, no, that's spot on, Anton. No, it's fantastic that you guys are doing that and just nurturing that business, those small businesses who will become big businesses at some point. The pandemic has really shifted the outlook for short-term insurers. What are the key issues that your clients and consumers are facing? For example, for example, am finding myself driving less than I did, pre-2020, and I imagine that's a trend across the board. And I imagine that hybrid working is shifting all sorts of other parameters. What kind of trends are you seeing from your clients and your consumers?
Yeah, so certainly in the early days of pandemic, that was the big focus. Was people weren't driving at all. You remember April 2020, there was sort of zero driving taking place. So we shifted our benefits and made them all into reduced driving benefits as opposed to driving well benefits. So in the past, you used to get a score for driving well, and depending on that score, you got a discount on the fuel that you purchased. Well, when you weren't purchasing any fuel, that discount didn't really sort of come into play. So we shifted our benefits and we made them into a benefit for reduced driving. And I think we're the only insurer that's carried that right out. And we've sort of already done that to date, where we've been paying out every single month for people driving low sort of distance low distance per month. Where I think insurers are now sort of shifting a lot of attention is actually just managing a very, very complex supply chain challenge. I think that we're all dealing with, and it's worth maybe just setting that out, because it probably hasn't been spoken much sort of publicly yet. But inflation is a phenomenon that I think we're all going to be dealing with globally, where just everything's going up, whether it's from the pandemic, now obviously the difficulties in Eastern Europe. But inflation is certainly rising, and one of the areas that we found a lot of challenges is just actually getting access to motor parts. So motor parts, which are generally imported, mostly coming from the East, are subject to a significant increase in shipping costs. Anyone that's in the shipping industry or importing anything would know what I'm talking about, but the cost of shipping has gone up by 5 or 6 times compared to what it was pre-pandemic. And that ultimately translates into a more expensive motor part. And very often the motor part is not actually, you can't even get hold of that motor part. It's just not available. So there's a big shortage. There's a shortage on microchips, coming out of the East, and therefore you probably know that getting hold of a new motor car at the moment is a challenge. There's just no stock, so you can wait months and months to get a new motor car, and that's had a spin-off effect on used cars. So used car prices have gone through the roof. They're 30 to 40% up now, because people can't get hold of new cars, so they're obviously bidding up the price of used cars. So these are the challenges that affect us on a daily basis, because what we do on a daily basis is we fix cars.
Yes.
A high percentage of our business is motor vehicle accidents. It goes to a panel shop, and ultimately we're responsible for making sure the car is fixed. And when you can't get hold of motor parts, that obviously is very challenging. So these are some of the kind of the post-pandemic. If I can't call it quite post-pandemic, because we're still slightly in the pandemic, but the towards the end of the pandemic challenges that I think we're facing the same things around the world. So every single insurance company around the world is dealing with the exact same challenges. How to be efficient and slick and cost effective about the way you manage insurance, so that ultimately insurance remains a cost effective purchase.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that the other day, and I'm glad you raised the price in the motoring industry, right? You look at the price of cars. Firstly, you can't get brand new cars. You've got to wait for 4 months. I mean, the chip shortage has had a profound impact. And second-hand car prices, you can pay anything up to 20% over the value of the actual vehicle. So how on earth does one insure a vehicle that's only worth X amount in the book? And you go to an insurer like Discovery and you say, I want to insure my car. I've paid 600,000, but you tell me it's only worth 500,000. How does that impact the entire transaction?
So we actually introduced a product. This was actually a little bit before the pandemic. We introduced a product called the Retail Value Booster. So that allows you to effectively insure your car for 15% more than the traditional book value. The book value that's been used for decades and decades in the insurance industry, it's used by all insurance companies. You can actually insure it for 15% above that value. The intention originally was because some people keep their cars in very, very good condition, and they know that if their car is written off or stolen, they want to be able to buy the best condition new car they can, used car they can find, because that puts them back into the position. So we allow them to effectively top up their cover. They pay a slightly higher premium, so it's not 15% more, it's less than that. So they pay a slightly higher premium for 15% more cover, effectively. Now it's being used, and it's more relevant because just that value, that book value, is lagging what's happening in reality. That because car prices are moving so quickly, there's a lag factor. So it's definitely something to consider. You should look at it for yourself if you're interested. But at the end of the day, the last thing you want is the book value of your car is 200,000, but when you need to replace it, it's 250,000 for the exact same car, similar mileage, condition, whatever. And now you've got a 50,000 rand shortfall. So being able to at least meet as much of that shortfall as possible is something that I think is quite relevant.
And finally, Anton, if I may engage you, I know that it might not be Discovery's stance on where things are at the moment, but I'm like you, I'm just fascinated by the way technology is moving. And you look at the amount of electric vehicles on the road, and you hear about these self-driving vehicles, and you look at the trends, and by all accounts, people say, well, it's never going to happen, but you and I know that it is going to happen at one point. There is going to be an inflection point. I mean, you look at a country like Finland, where they only sell electric vehicles, and it's going to be just a matter of time before vehicles are driving us and technology is driving us without any drivers. And people say, well, it's going to take 50 years to come to South Africa. I don't think so. I think these kind of technologies will be here within the next decade. What is your take on the future of driving and the self-driving vehicles, and how that might impact the insurance industry?
Yeah, so I think there are two different parts to that question. The one is electric cars, and the other part is kind of self-driving cars. So electric cars, in my view, that's imminent. I think as soon as obviously the cost of the cars come down, so the cost differential between the petrol equivalent and the electric car narrows, and potentially, if there are any sort of tax breaks in time, like many of the countries, probably Finland, I know in the UK, definitely there's a tax break effectively on the differential between an electric car and a petrol version of the car. So the government effectively incentivizing people to move away from sort of carbon-driven cars. So I think in any way or form that is coming, and I think that's coming quite soon. Self-driving cars, difficult one to predict. A couple of years ago, I think it felt like it was imminent. It felt like this train was moving, and it's moving quickly, and they're going to be sort of coming to all sort of cities around the world. And then things started slowing down. There were one or two bad incidents with the self-driving car getting into an accident, and one or two injuries as a result of that. And I think people got nervous, where probably incorrectly so, because accidents happen when humans are driving it. So why can't they happen if a computer's driving it? But there's a different psychological factor, I think, to an accident caused when there's no human behind the wheel. So I think the difficulty is how the two interrelate. Self-driving car with human driving cars, interrelate in an ecosystem. You can imagine a kind of a new city starts, and it's only self-driving cars, and that's all you have. That sounds like it makes sense. How the two interact, no computer can predict the unpredictability of a human. I mean, a human can't predict that. So how can a computer? Those are the difficulties, I think, that have to still be played out. And in the developed markets, while the technology is there, they're not rolling out in sort of great numbers yet. So from our perspective, we obviously embrace anything that improves the reduction in accidents, and if it reduces accidents, that's a good thing. So, will the insurance industry be affected by it? It will definitely be affected by it, but it will kind of, merge into something else. It will offer different types of cover. You'll be covering the motor manufacturer and their liabilities, maybe less than the driver and their liabilities if there is no driver. You may find much fewer accidents, but the accidents may be way more expensive because you've got very complicated, technology. So you'll have less customers, maybe higher premiums. So at the end of the day, the insurance industry will adapt, and it's adapted since the early days of the 18 or 1700s, when contracts were written in Lloyd's coffee shop for shipping voyages across the sea. Insurance industries have come a long way since then, and will come a long way, forward. From an electric cars perspective, there's going to be the difference in the way the accidents ultimately sort of translate. There's going to be significant expensive parts that need to be replaced. If you start replacing you won't be replacing engines or petrol engines, you'll be replacing battery packs, which are pretty expensive as well. So, again, there'll be adaptation for that. So it's exciting. I think it's exciting times. I think innovative insurance companies will find the opportunities to add value as sort of the asset base changes.
Anton, tell me about your driving academy. I'm hearing really interesting things about it and just improving driver behavior. How's that thing going?
Aki, so we launched last year the Discovery Insure Driving Academy here at One Discovery Place, where we've brought in some of the most high-tech driving simulators in the world, where you feel that you're driving a car. It's a simulator, but it doesn't feel like a TV game. It feels like you're actually driving a car with a gearbox and a realistic feeling steering wheel and windscreen wipers, and it really just feels absolutely as close as possible to doing the real thing. And our thinking around that is that youngsters go on the road and they start learning how to drive, and they've never been behind the wheel of a car. Now, they go behind their parents' car or driving instructor's car. And we thought that this would be a better way for people to get their first taste of driving in a obviously very controlled sort of manner, controlled way. So we've got a full-time driving instructor who works with us. He's got a huge amount of expertise in the space. People can book online. It's available online for people to book. In fact, it's really cost effective. It's being offered, I think, as a special at the moment for a couple of £100. I think it's probably cost as much as maybe one session on the road with a driving instructor, or maybe two. And here you get a number of sessions, 3 to 5 sessions that you can have, and it gives you that familiarity and makes you comfortable with how to change gears and how to navigate the road before you then are let loose on your parents' car or your driving instructor's car. So it's just a better way, we think, of teaching the foundational sort of requirements for people to learn to drive. So we're very excited about it. It's a pilot. We're only doing it in Johannesburg at the moment until we see how it operates, and then something we would love to expand to all our driving centers around the country. We have a number of these driving centers where people can do everything to do with Discovery Insure at a driving center, and we'll look to potentially put some of these simulators in over time. So, if you've got a child who's just got his learner's license, try it out. It's a couple £100. It's a very safe place to do it, and hopefully their chances of passing their driving test and being a better driver is that much better. I think we even discount insurance premiums for any youngster that goes through this course because we're that confident that they're going to be a better driver, so they get an automatic discount on their insurance premiums. So it probably pays for itself in the first month or two of their insurance premiums.
Brilliant. I love it. Absolutely brilliant. Anton Ossip, Chief Executive Officer for Discovery Insure. It's always so good to chat to you and, tapping into your mind and how you're thinking. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you again, Anton. Thank you very much for your time, and we wish you well. And here's to the next 10 years at Discovery Insure. May you guys grow from strength to strength.
Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate being on your show.
Thank you, Anton.